Welcome to Golf in the Good Life, your guide to golf travel across the pond. I'm DJ Jones, joined as always by my good friend Connor Evers, and today we're going to share some things to read before your departure. But before we get there, Connor, it has been kind of just a wild ride over here the last couple of weeks, both across the pond and on our side of the Atlantic. How are things up at H&B HQ?
Yes, you're definitely correct in that. Quite a wild start to our week. On Monday, there was a really rough and bad storm that came through Scotland, kind of, I would say, out of nowhere a little bit. First time in a long time. The old course did close down. They had no play the entire day. Not even a group was even let out at, I think, 6:30 is the first tee time in the morning. There are a few other courses throughout Scotland that also closed. I know Carnoustie was one of them, and Kingsbarn stayed open, which is amazing. So it's kind of hit or miss, of course, is staying open or not. But it was a really bad storm. If you looked it up online, I mean, there was gusts up to 80 to 90 mile per hour. I saw that was reported, especially up in kind of the Highlands area. And around Sam Baker and Liz Baker were up, and actually the Highlands kind of during this time. So we'll have to get a full report from them when we're back. Because of the old course closing, we actually had a couple groups playing it on Monday, which was a tough start to the week. But I'm really proud of our team whenever things happen like this and we're able to leverage our partners overseas, from driver hosts to concierge to even our internal staff. And it's just an amazing thing that we did to move these groups to different days and do other logistics that kind of made it all just seem like a small band-aid on kind of a big wound, if you will, that could have been. So I'm proud of what we do every day, proud of our team, of everything that we do, but even more when it comes to these situations, it makes us even feel more proud of what we do. It just seems like you said, kind of getting you back in the fairways, and that's literally what we did. So overall, the great start, and it was a pretty interesting situation.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. And I think we have a whole episode where we talk about stuff happens and how do you respond to things. And yeah, major kudos and shout out to all of our friends overseas. We couldn't have done it without you. I mean, it's really not much different than a flight getting canceled. It's like if a flight gets canceled on Christmas Eve, you're not getting home till the 28th or 29th because there's not an empty seat for days and days to come. And the tee sheets are very similar over there right now. So shout out to our friends at the Links Trust and every other course involved in terms of getting, like you said, all of those groups back in the fairway. It was a smoother end to the week, I'm sure, for everybody.
It was. It absolutely was. And speaking of St. Andrews, another big thing that'll come up here in the next few weeks. Again, we're recording this on the 8th of August, 2025. At the end of this month in August, the Swilken package will open up for groups to apply for a guaranteed tee time for intended play next year in 2026. And the results will come out. It varies, but usually it's in October. Sometimes it's early October. Sometimes it's in the late. So it just varies. But again, around the middle or so of October is when the results will come out. So looking forward to our groups that are planning on balloting for next year to potentially get that confirmed tee time and not have to worry about balloting, or ones that are just kind of getting started and applying and see where it takes them from there. So that, again, will open up. That's another kind of big thing here. Another thing on the calendar here as we get closer and closer to 2026, which is crazy to think about. And as always, shout out to groups that are about to depart from the Governor's Club at Kiowa Island, Locust Hill Country Club, Olympic Club, and Summit Hills Country Club. So shout out especially those groups, but more specifically, Tom Walters, the golf professional at Summit Hills Country Club, the brother of our one and only Mike Walters here that you listened to on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. We're talking about the Open Championship and Royal Port Rush. So shout out to those groups. Looking forward to hearing their feedback from their expeditions across the pond.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Shout out to Tom. They are headed up to Northwest Ireland. I think St. Patrick's Links and a bunch of others up there on the docket, Nairn and Portneuf and what have you. So hopefully a great week ahead of them. And yeah, great heads up on the Swilken package. You know, if you are headed across the pond to St. Andrews and your plan this entire time is to ballot in 2026, toss your name in for the dates that you're planning to go. You never know. There can be sometimes a little bit of just glass half empty mindset when it comes to these things. Oh, the ballot there's so many people and nobody gets the ballot anymore. Nobody gets the Swilken package. There's 10 times as many people entering every day. Listen, those success stories are out there. We hear them every single year. And in some cases during the travel season, we've shared a couple ballot success stories here on the podcast. So put your name in the hat. You never know. Stuff has a funny way of coming together in St. Andrews, as we've said many times before. But moving back to the episode. So A common question that we receive in between the time of, say, someone has put their trip on the books and when they're ready to go is, you got any suggestions for things I can read, books or what have you, to help pass the time, to maybe learn a little about links golf or learn the history of where we're going or whatever it might be? And we've done a little bit of this throughout the years on the podcast of maybe sharing something that we've read recently, but we thought it would be fun to kind of compile some of our favorite books and other reading material into the episode here. So, Connor, I'm curious, what's been on your reading list lately?
Looking forward to today's episode. And I know we shared a few times of what are we reading and stuff. So I was like, you know what? Let's just do an episode just on this because we love it. And I think everyone should read some books too, specifically for golf and links golf. So my first one here, I just finished it. I kind of referenced it in the last couple podcasts, but it's called The Long Golden Afternoon, Golf's Age of Glory. And it's from the years of 1864 to 1914. So right before World War One takes place, the first kind of part of the book really digs deep on John Ball, so the first amateur to win the Open Championship in 1890. The book's got it all. It's got history, emotion, the history, obviously, of the game, links golf. The biggest thing that I really liked about it too is it talked about how golf started obviously in Scotland, but how it transitioned down to England. And kind of halfway through the book to maybe two-thirds through it, they then talk about how competitive golf was between England and Scotland. And the Scots won these matches and the English won these matches. And it wasn't golfers versus golfers like Scotty Scheffler versus Xander Schauffele, how we have it today, just or some of the best golfers. It is literally England versus Scotland and who's winning these matches. And I think that was the neatest thing. Kind of the beginning also, it talks about old Tom Morris, how he came down to England and made the first links at Westward Ho and at it's called Royal North Devon now. So just it's just an amazing thing. You feel like you're there. It digs deep into each golfer. It's just an amazing, amazing book. Really enjoyed it. And I think everyone should read it. It's very information heavy, but it's really neat. And I think the other kind of unique thing about it too is you learn about these gentlemen that were some of the best players, and then they go off to fight in World War One. I mean, I cried a couple of times reading it because it's like, oh my gosh, like these guys were some of the best golfers, and they went off to war, and some of them passed away, even some smaller wars up to the actual World War One. So it's a pretty unique book, and I definitely recommend it from everyone from a historical standpoint and just golf.
That sounds like a great one, and I'll put it on my list because I love learning about not just the early days of golf, but the early people of golf. And these stories, they always kind of center around the people. And yes, the golf is a part of it. And hearing about, like you say, the matches that were played, stroke play wasn't a thing. And it's just you get a really great appreciation for it. And especially somebody like John Ball, if you're headed to England, especially if you're headed to Royal Liverpool, where he's kind of beloved, it's cool to tie that in. And it actually ties into kind of my first two books. It's one suggestion, but two books in one. And it's a couple books on old Tom Morris. And old Tom factors in so much because folks go to St. Andrews and they walk through the cemetery and take their picture and what have you. But learning about what old Tom did for the game of golf and just some of the, not only the greenskeeping things that he brought to the table, but like things that were more or less invented. Tee boxes weren't a thing. Old Tom Morris had to invent the tee box, and it just kind of blows my mind. But the story that, or the book that tells his story in the greatest detail, at least that I've read, is Tom Morris of St. Andrews, The Colossus of Golf. And it's about a 300-page book, and it is his life from start to finish, working for Allen Robertson and the whole story there and moving to Prestwick, getting the course going there, the tie into the Open, playing the Open, winning the Open, and then, yes, a little bit of heartbreak with his son, young Tom Morris, and his tragic passing, which ties in so much to the book. And the guy lived to be 80 some odd years old, outlived all of his children. I think he outlived almost all of his kids, if not all of them. I don't know. I may have lost that fact through the years. I read this book 15 years ago. It's just an incredibly in-depth telling. If you're looking for something that's on old Tom, but maybe a little bit lighter, you don't need 300 pages on the minutia of old Tom's life. Tommy's Honor is another great one because it touches on so many of the things that the Colossus of Golf touches on. But this one focuses as much on young Tom Morris and him being golf's original superstar and everything that he did in his very short time in the game of golf, winning the Open Championship 4 consecutive times, taking home that challenge belt, and therefore we have the claret jug, and so many great stories. And then if you don't want to read it, that's okay. There's a movie. They made it into a movie several years ago. Ironically, living here in Florida, the random movie theater in the Villages had the Tommy's Honor premiere when it came out. So I went up to the premiere of this movie years ago. I mean, this has been like 10 years ago. But two great ones on Old Tom Morris. And if you're going to St. Andrews, or really if you're going anywhere, but if you're going to St. Andrews and Prestwick, getting up to Dornoch, over to Royal County down, his fingerprints are everywhere. And so it's two good ones to read.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, I haven't read the first one, the Colossus Golf, but Tommy's Honor, I've read through a few times. I think Mike is actually starting it again, which is great. So we've got some readers here at the company. But my next one up is Tom Doak's Confidential Guide, and more specifically, Great Britain and Ireland. I believe he's got 5 volumes, 5 editions of it throughout the world. I think United States. I think he's got one for South America, or maybe the Americas. It's all in one, and one for Asia and the Pacific. But obviously, for sake of the conversation, we're talking about the GB&I one. This is actually a gift for me. It's a very expensive book. I think it's like $150, the newer editions of it, but it was a gift for me. So it was a really nice one. But essentially, Tom Doak, he goes through pretty much every golf course and majority of the courses throughout GB&I, and they rate the courses from 0 to 10. So 0 pretty much is, he says it's poison, it's bad, don't play it, don't even go back. 5 is it's average, it's fine, like play it, it's not a must stop, but it's okay. And then 10 is like, if I get the invite to play XYZ course, I'd drop everything, I'd fly overseas and play it. So that's kind of the rating scale of it. But he goes through every course. Some descriptions are pretty short. He's at the Gourmet's Choice, so it's a first, I think it's 20 or so courses in the front of the book. It just goes through pretty much every golf course from Wales to England, Scotland, Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, etc., and talks about every course. So it's a really fun thing. It's nice if you have the upcoming trip planned to go through that and kind of see what he's mentioned about it. And it's pretty subjective, of course, going and reading through it, but it's pretty unique. His insights are interesting as always, but it's a good read, and it's a nice little bookshelf book, or a coffee table book as well at that. So definitely recommend that. A little bit of an investment, but it's nice to kind of look through all the courses, kind of see his thoughts on them.
Yeah, it's a great one. I have a copy of it as well, and it's a great way to get just kind of a little snippet mixed with sometimes a little bit of humor, sometimes a little bit of snark. There's a couple hot takes in the book
Yes.
that have earned plenty of articles and what have you. We don't need to bring them up here, but you're right. It's a little bit of an investment, and I actually went on his website before we recorded a couple days ago, and it was sold out, the GB&I one. And so I messaged him on Instagram to ask, hey, are you getting these back in? And he says, I'll check. And so we'll see. But busy guy, he wrote somebody back on Instagram. So that tells you something. But it's a great read, and really just kind of gives you, like you said, a nice little preview of everything. But I've got to make my next one the Golfer's Journal. And look, I get it. The Golfer's Journal is not a book. But the Golfer's Journal, as we've mentioned so many times, I think in on other episodes, so sorry if it's a broken record, but listen, it is the gold standard for golf journalism today. There's nothing better out there. I will be on this hill for quite some time. If you're thinking it's a magazine, you need to just kind of remove that from your brain, because it's anything but. Super high quality, both in terms of the production and the physically holding the book, but just everything throughout it, the writing, the photography, the fact that there's basically no ads. Like the first 10 or so pages have some full page ads, and then you get into the meat of it and there's nothing else there. It's just nothing but some of the best golf journalism that you're going to encounter, and the stories are so compelling. The most recent one is number 32, and right up front there's an article about a couple that they were both work from home folks, and they moved over to Scotland for a year, and they became members at London Links, and they're just talking about their life playing there. And so of course we shared it with our partner Chris McCon, who is a overseas member at London Links. He's going actually here pretty soon, so he'll get to see it firsthand. If you don't subscribe to the Golfer's Journal, you absolutely should subscribe to the Golfer's Journal. When I go to read it, it's a afternoon or an evening investment. Like I sit down with it on like a Saturday afternoon and it's a few hours. It really fills your tank for the game of golf. And at least in terms of related to what we do, almost every issue has something in it from GB&I, something from Scotland, Ireland, or wherever it might be. And the stories are outstanding. So that's my plug for the Golfer's Journal.
That's a good one at that. I mean, it's everything is beautifully written, and you're right. The first few pages are just their ads, but even the ads are really pretty. And I'm like, oh, this is nice. Like Titleist or like Holderness and Bourne is one of theirs now too. So the stories are amazing, incredible, draws a lot of emotion. What I'm looking behind me, I can't remember what number it is, but it's from Critch Island. I mean, that story there was great. I mean, you brought that to me when you were up in the office, I think last December, and I brought it home to my dad because that's where we went in Northwest Ireland in 2022. My dad does not read anything. He's more YouTube videos, stuff like that. That's his kind of like entertainment. He'll read some articles, but he doesn't read a book. I've tried to get him to a few things and he just can't. Well, I gave him that and he was dialed in, and he was even telling me things that I forgot that were in there. So it's spectacular. Can't say enough good things about them and the work they do. My next one up is Searching in St. Andrews by Sean Zach. DJ and I, we both have read this. Sean Zach is actually a writer for golf.com, and he came out with this book. So essentially, what happened, it was kind of during COVID. I think it may have been right after COVID. He decided he was kind of in the lull in life and was like, you know what? Kind of like that couple going to London, the story in the Golfer's Journal. He's like, you know what? I just want to spend literally a summer in St. Andrews in Scotland. This is 2022, actually. So right after COVID. Forgot about it actually now. So he went there and watched the Open. He got a kind of a little cottage in St. Andrews from a lady. And the stories are just amazing, from meeting random people. This taxi driver from the Edinburgh airport to St. Andrews was the same one throughout kind of his journey when he was in Scotland. So he took that same taxi driver from multiple different areas. He didn't have a car. He just kind of hung out in town, and different stories of playing tournaments and medal play and the pub scene. It was every person's kind of dream to just, you know what? I'm moving, I'm going away for a whole summer to Scotland as golfers. Really cool. And he literally did that and wrote a book about it. I think the other thing too is kind of interesting with Live Golf starting around the same time. So kind of talked about from a work perspective of golf.com of kind of how that changed the landscape of professional golf at that. And just interesting to be there for an open year too. So it's a really fun read. My biggest recommendation, if you have a trip scheduled to St. Andrews, even this year or like next year, read it, digest it. It's a fun read, humor, some cool things in there. I think he also caddied for Joel Damon in like the Scottish Open at Renaissance too, if I remember that too. Actually, that was the best part of the book. It was really, really funny how they're staying at Marine North Berwick, and then they're drinking pints of beer. I don't know. It's just, if you've been over before, all of the stories come alive. It's just a fun read. Definitely recommend it. So.
Well, we mentioned that back talking about the Open and how, like, when they went to the Harbor Bar and Willie was there, and it's like, hey, I know that guy. And it's just really cool to pick up a book or whatever it might be and read about places and people that you know. And yes, he obviously throughout that whole book, he goes everywhere we've been. And so if you've been over and you've been anywhere in St. Andrews, and even like you said, North Berwick and what have you, it's just so fun to read about that kind of thing. And it's a great story. And actually, the next two, I've got another 2-for-1 special here, are the same way. And that's the books by Tom Coyne. There's actually 3 that I'll mention: A Course Called Ireland, A Course Called Scotland, and A Course Called America. A Course Called Ireland was the very first one. It's kind of, I don't know if it's what put him on golf's literature radar sort of thing, but it's the first one I was familiar with. And Tom literally walked the perimeter of the island of Ireland, playing practically every golf course that he stumbled across. And same thing, it's the story of not only him and his journey and the courses, but mostly the people that he meets along the way. And then that led in to A Course Called Scotland. I think he hung up his walking shoes for that one, and I don't blame him, but same kind of thing. He checks so many boxes. He gets to practically every corner of the country. And again, the stories from the people and the places. If you love the game overseas, those 2 books are fantastic. Obviously, they've been out for quite some time, so You can probably pick up a paperback or something on Amazon. Actually, you know what? On his website, you can pick up copies still. I think he'll even sign it for you. And then A Course Called America is his most recent one. Came out a couple years ago, and it's very much the same thing. He's not walking anywhere, but he's playing so many unbelievable courses. And I think this one he does over the span of like a year, if I remember right, and maybe even 2 years. But the other two were in a much more concentrated period of time. But man, just covers so much terrain. I don't know if there's anywhere that he hasn't played these days. But Tom is the editor of the Golfer's Journal, so it ties in. The writing just carries forward, and you see so much of that throughout both places. But those are the last of my big ones there, Connor. You got any more?
No, I think a couple quick hitters that we could go through here. There's kind of shorter books or ones we just kind of didn't mention, but Golf Architecture by Alister MacKenzie. I got this off Amazon. I was just kind of looking through books. I'm like, how can I learn more about golf architecture? It's really cheap. I think it's like less than $10. I think it's like 90 to 115 pages. You'll read through it right away. There's some picture books in there. They literally have he has diagrams of different holes. I mean, a lot of it is around Scotland. North Berwick, I believe, is in there, but just kind of talks about, hey, how is this course built? Why is it built? The different angles. It's very fascinating. It's not going to go over your head if you don't know anything about golf architecture, but it's also not like a beginner's 101. So it's kind of in between. That's what I think I like about it the most. The other one is some essays on golf course architecture by Harry Colt, and there's some contributions from Dr. MacKenzie as well. Also about 100 pages, really good. I think the other thing it talks about is how the holes are placed. I talked about this on a couple podcasts ago about just an example of Brora, how the bunkers on some days, the prevailing wind is downwind. You got to think about them. And the other days when it's in, you don't have to think about them. You're going to be short. And they talk about how the prevailing winds are like thought about before they even laid out courses specifically in GB and I think that was the coolest thing, and kind of just like, wow, okay, I'm thinking about that on this hole when I'm playing it in 2025, and they were thinking about the same thing in the 1800s or early 19 whatever. It's super super cool. The other ones I'd say is Of Peats and Putts. It's by Andrew Brown. I believe there's 9 books, really short too. Personally, haven't read these yet, but I had this on my Goodreads to read. But there's 9 series, kind of talks about different whiskey distilleries throughout Scotland, more specifically to Scotland here, and talks about the golf courses that are close by. So if you're going up to, say, the Aberdeen or Speyside area, even like I said, the Highlands, definitely recommend looking these out. The other one I didn't put on my list, but I added on there is, so Stephen Proctor. He's the one that wrote that first book about the long golden afternoon. That's the one I first talked about. He has another one. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. Like I said, I haven't read it yet, but it's actually about young Tom Morris. So he kind of said all these different books and movies are about old Tom, and obviously how the unfortunate death of young Tom affected old, but there really isn't anything more concentrated towards young. And so he actually wrote a book specifically just about him and his life and his journey throughout golf, and obviously the Open Championship too. So definitely check that one out too if you're kind of want to learn more about the Open and more specifically about young. So that's my kind of quick hitters or last ones.
Cool. I've got a handful as well. St. Andrews in the Footsteps of Old Tom Morris. This is another almost like, I would almost call this a coffee table book. It's an investment. Roger McStravick is a St. Andrews based historian, and this book goes into everything you would ever want to know about St. Andrews and the history, and the old photos that he has are absolutely incredible. Awesome book. Golf Has Never Failed Me by Donald Ross. If you're a member at a Donald Ross course or you're going up to Dornick, you probably should read this one. An American Caddie in St. Andrews by Oliver Horowitz. That was probably the first book I read after I started working for Haversham and Baker, if you can believe it or not. And what a fun read. Oliver, I don't think there's any chance you're ever going to listen to this, but the thing I've always remembered about this book is his Uncle Ken. Uncle Ken by himself is worth reading the book. A Season in Dornick. Author Lauren Rubenstein spent, as it says, a season up in rural Dornick. I think the book is like 30 years old at this point, and it still stands the test of time. It's a great read. And then there are 3 books by James Finnegan. It's like Blasted Heaths and Blessed Greens, Emerald Fairways. I can't remember all the titles. If you search James Finnegan golf books, there's one on Scotland, one on Ireland, and one on England. And he basically does practically every course under the sun. If you want to learn about in depth on these courses, Some of them might just be like a little overview, but great read. And then last but not least, this is not a book, but if you're making a trip overseas, if you haven't read your proposal or your itinerary of your trip, you need to read it before you leave. If you haven't read that, you got to start there and then branch out to everything else. Then you'll at least know where you're going and might be able to pick up some books to pair with that as well. Connor, man, that was fun. What's on your reading list? You got anything that's pending golf related?
Yeah, I do. So that one about young Tom, I want to read that. And then Mike just gave me a book about Bobby Jones. So I really want to read that. It's about 500 pages. I mean, it's his whole life. So I don't know. I've got a queue. I go in between so many different genres, but this book about golf right before World War One, I was like, I need to read more just even about this time period, golf aside. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I am also reading God and Guinness. I got that from my dad for Christmas. Like I said, he doesn't read. He has not opened it up yet. So I'm like, you know what? I'm taking this. So I'm about halfway through it. It's also a really good read. I should have added that one too. I'm going to Ireland. Mostly this has been about Scotland, but that's kind of on mine. What about you? Anything?
Well, ironically, so this isn't golf related in the
Yeah.
least, but Mike's been on a heater in terms of recommendations. So when I was up a few weeks ago, he recommended a book called A Gentleman in Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 500 pages, so it's an investment of time. This has been the best book. It's completely unrelated to golf. I'm about halfway through it, or a little over halfway, and I have no idea where the story of this guy's going, and yet I'm fully invested. I love this main character and just hope that it pays off for him in the end. I'm sure it will, otherwise Mike wouldn't have recommended it. But with that, I guess we will wrap this one up. Listen, we'll throw some links to these books in our show notes. There are not going to be affiliate links. We're not plugging it for anybody here. This is just stuff that we enjoyed reading and we thought you might as well. But if you want to know where to find them, we'll include them in the notes. If you have your own favorites, head to our website. We've got a record a message feature. Go to haversham.com/podcast. Send us a message. Tell us your favorites or DM us on social. Send us an email, golf@haversham.com. We would love to hear from you. But we'll be back again soon with another episode. But in the meantime, we wish you plenty of golf at its finest and life at its best.